there, Bunny here with a game in the Mackensen, the Tier 7 KMBB, and in this game we're going to be focusing on situational awareness, which is absolutely essential to playing a battleship. In a battleship, you're really slow, you don't turn very fast, your guns even aim slow, and your shells travel for a very long time. So you can't really be playing the game that's happening right now when you play a battleship. You kind of have to be playing the game that's happening 5 to 10 seconds from now. And we're going to see a lot of that in this game, as well as paying attention to all the different factors going on in a battle, looking out for those various momentum shifts, and we're going to see how that can really change the game, preserve both your life and your team's life, and secure victory for your team. So starting out here, we're heading down the eastern flank of this map while our platoon mates have headed down the west. We spotted some CLs down here in the south, and we're trying to keep our scout as far away from them as possible, just on the periphery of their vision, because we know that they have some very nasty anti-aircraft, and there it is right there. So we want to keep our scout alive and keep them far away from that. And unfortunately, we're actually going to begin this game with a bit of a blunder. We see this DD coming here, and we already turn towards him. Very, very poor play right there. And we even take a massive hit from a battleship in the process and lose our scout even, because we're focused our attention here instead. Fortunately, this DD does not drop his torps on us, allowing us to get away from this situation. But that right there is a pretty perfect example of what I'm talking about when it comes to maintaining situational awareness and planning ahead when you're driving a BB. Even though we really hadn't made very much of a move there, by the time we saw that DD, we were already committed to that turn, we couldn't come out of it, and we were forced into a bad position. So that's kind of what I'm talking about when I say that you have to really plan ahead and play the game that's 5 to 10 seconds from now. So we get another scout out there, and we're trying to keep some fire, keep this DD away from us. We're keeping an eye on those CLs again approaching us, and we take another big hit from whatever BB was just chasing us. We move our camera a bit, we see that it's an Issei, the Tier 8 IJN BB, a very formidable battleship. So we give off a salvo at him, and we manage to land a couple of shells on him, but nothing too spectacular. And in any case, we're gonna let him get away, because we have bigger problems on our hand. So we turn away, he slips out of range, and we drop back and focus our attention on these CLs that are approaching us. We see right up here that is the St. Louis, the Tier 10 US CL, a very formidable CL. We want to prioritize him and take him out because he is a very high-value target. And me and this Revenge here putting a couple of shells into him, but nothing super effective, and then he makes a huge mistake. He runs aground on the island there and makes himself a massive target for most of our team. A lot of us get a bunch of shells on him, and we consider using our heavy bombing run to take him out of the game, but we decide against that because we see that he is done for, and that would have been a huge waste of a heavy bombing run. So he gets taken out of the game, and this DD is keeping some pressure up on us. Well played to him. We're putting out some fire with our secondary battery. The secondary battery is actually quite powerful on the Mackensen, so make sure you make extensive use of that. And in the meantime, we have our recon support up as well, and we're looking around the map, looking to see where the enemy is. We decided to put our heavy bombing run over here in the west on this enemy Prinz Eugen. And that's because we took the entire battle into account. Even though we're on the eastern flank here, we chose to use our flagship power in the area where it was most needed. And that just happened to be in the west half of the map, where our team is, they're struggling a bit. That Prinz Eugen is giving them quite a bit of grief, and understandably so. It's a very formidable ship. So, meanwhile, we're getting another scout out, and this is another bit of important advice. Use your flak, for the love of God. I don't understand why so many battleships just neglect their flak. Even when it's just a small scout like that, use your flak, for the love of God. Battleships have to fear absolutely everything from the air, not just fighters and bombers from enemy CVs. Even if it's just a small little scout, a tiny little scout over your head can basically make you a sitting duck, even for essentially inferior targets. And if you've seen any of my other videos, you'll know exactly why that is. So we sent our scout out, and we're keeping on this eastern flank here because we see that a Brooklyn is actually trying to sneak around and hit our team in the back. And he's now charging directly at us, so we try to turn away, try to drop back, even though we know he's much faster than us, obviously. He's going to run us down very quickly. We still want to drop back and, increase the length of this engagement as much as possible. And there we use our flak, take out his scout. He did get a glimpse of us in all likelihood, but, we were able to limit the time that scout was over our head, and as a result, we're able to turn him away and on pretty low health. So that is another engagement that could have gone far more poorly had we not used our flak. He could have basically just got in, taken out our scout, and just had his way with us. Instead, we were able to turn him back and prevent him from flanking our team and hitting them in the backside. Now, even though we've done that, our team is not exactly in the best of positions. They're losing ground here pretty rapidly in the west, and that Prinz Eugen is still being quite the bother. So we're turning around here, we're trying to come to their aid, and worse yet, as we'll see in a moment, our platoon mate Seagull in the Tier 9 Brooklyn is actually under quite a bit of pressure. He's on low health, and he is in trouble. Yep, there he is right there at very low health, and he's being aggressive, trying to secure those kills, but he really needs a hand, so we're going to try to rush to his aid as quick as possible, try to preserve his life and keep him in the game. And we see this Prinz Eugen turning in on him. That's not a good sign. So we're continuing this rush here, and we're actually forced into this trajectory here by those mines just to the north of us, so we really can't turn out. And we get a salvo off at the Prinz Eugen. It's too late. Seagull goes down, but we're going to try to make the most use of his death. This Eugen has not seen us coming. We're going to get a nice amount of damage on him, drop a heavy bombing salvo on him, and then drop back, lengthening the range of the engagement and putting it a little bit more in our favor. And we consider turning in on him again, but then we predict that he's going to turn and rush back at us, and that's absolutely the right call. So we continue to drop back, and we end up drawing him right into our friendly Revenge, the Tier 6 UK battleship. So we're able to get off a little bit more damage on him, and meanwhile someone of the enemies left their scout a little bit too low there, and it gets taken out by friendly AAW. So now we've got a pretty good advantage. We also see this Brooklyn coming through the shadows, and right as he disappears, we get a crushing salvo on him there. Very, very good play there. We're continuing to hang back a little bit here. Don't want to get too close to the enemy ever when you're in a battleship. And that goes doubly for something like the Mackensen, which is not the greatest of Tier 7 BBs, let's be honest. We're trying to put the finishing blow on that Brooklyn, but we're unable to do so. And meanwhile, we're getting out another scout and trying to keep our wits about us. Again, that is the most important thing to do when you're in a battleship. And we see that this Prinz Eugen is rushing headlong at us yet again. That is not good. So we're trying to put as much fire on him as possible, get a good salvo there, and we make sure to use our flak, take that out, and force him to retreat yet again. We do not want a straight one-on-one engagement with him on fair terms at all. He is a much better ship, much more maneuverable ship than this slow old Mackensen here. So we want to keep the engagement in our favor as much as possible. So we turn him back, and that allows us to instead shift our attention to this Issei, who has cropped up once again. Get a couple of shells on him there, but once more, nothing too spectacular. Tier 7 BB accuracy is not very good. So we turn in towards them, and we see that the Eugen has actually advanced yet again. And this is actually another potential misplay. We've turned into both of them. In theory, we could be under fire from both the Issei and the Eugen at this point. Fortunately, the Issei does not turn his attention towards us. We're able to get a couple of more shells into the Eugen, and then we rapidly head north and turn our attention fully to this Issei, because our friendly Revenge there has put himself in a very bad position. He's run against the rocks, he's coming under fire from the DD and the Issei. He is in huge trouble, and we want to keep as many teammates alive as possible, want to consolidate our forces into one, nice solid clump. So we want to try to save his life, and fortunately we get a massive salvo there on that Issei, and we're able to put him out of the game right there. And as a result, we keep our teammate the Revenge alive, and that's going to help us tremendously in this game. So we get a couple shells into this DD here, and the Eugen is still lingering. We want to keep the pressure on him. We put a bombing run into him, but we can't turn our attention to him just yet. We see this Brooklyn again trying to make a nice flanking run. Good play, but we had damaged him so heavily earlier that we are able to take him out with another well-placed salvo. And so now we're in a pretty good position. The enemy are all pretty heavily damaged. We've got our team all collected together now. The Revenge is still alive, so we've got 2 BBs to their none, and that's always a good position to be in. And we were able to do that because we made the choice to save that Revenge. Save the life of that Revenge earlier rather than pursuing the kill on the Eugen. And honestly, that's a lot of what you're going to end up doing when you're playing as a BB. It's not necessarily about securing the kills so much as it is making sure you're putting the right amount of damage on the right target at the right time, and preserving the life of your team and preserving the momentum of your team in the process. And speaking of momentum, here we are chasing down the remainder of the enemy team. As we said, both of their DDs and the Eugen are on pretty low health, but it's certainly not over at this point by any means. We are running low on scouts, and although we ourselves are on pretty good amount of health, the Revenge and our DD are on rather low health. So we've got to be careful, and especially with this amount of flak. And there goes our second to last scout. Those DDs are very on top of their flak. Kudos to the enemy there. So we're now on our last scout. This is a very dicey position. It's very quickly becoming a nail biter here. We inform our team that we have we're on our last scout, especially because we are the only ship right now capable of scouting. And unfortunately, as we're getting our scout out here, our team makes a blunder. They turn into the enemy island, and the enemy team makes a fantastic push on them while we're blind, while we're lit up, and they're able to take out our Revenge here. We have our scout out, and we've also lowered its altitude to try to keep it out of the enemy flak as much as possible. It's our last scout. We gotta preserve it, we gotta preserve it against all odds, you know. And there goes our Revenge. We're taking fire from this DD to the south of us. Kudos to him. That's a good play there. And honestly, our only choice right now is to focus down this Eugen. He's on very low health. He's a huge threat still. And as you'll notice, we're on very low ammo right now. That's a problem you're going to run into a lot as a BB. So we need to spend all of our resources on this Eugen right now if we're going to win. And there goes, there's the last 2 rounds of HE in our main guns. We switched to AP, and we see that he's rushing towards us now, so we load our secondary battery, and they take out our last scout. Now things are really dicey. And even worse, for whatever reason, our main guns are only firing 1 turret. I don't know what happened there, but we're forced to whip out our heavy bombing salvo, and fortunately we are able to take out that Prince Eugen. But we're not out of the woods yet. We fire off another salvo. We see that only our front gun is firing still. It must be a glitch or something. I'm not quite sure, to be honest. But we cycle our ammo and our firing modes there a couple times, hoping that that fixes it. And then we turn our attention back to this game. It is far from over. It is now 2v2, although technically 2v1, since we noticed earlier that our teammate over in the northeast corner there is actually AFK. And we are completely scoutless at this point as well. And since the enemy are just a pair of DDs and we're a big, slow, lumbering BB, that means the game is pretty much at their mercy. So we have no choice but to rush in and try to secure a kill on one of them as fast as possible. We keep our eyes glued to our minimap, watching for that radar ping. We saw that one of them was heading north and one of them was to the south of the island. Sure enough, one of them is racing up to the northwest corner. And fortunately, our recon support comes up. We debate a little bit where to put it at first, and then we decide to put it in the south, and that turns out to be the right choice. We see an enemy DD limping towards us and are able to take him out of the game with a well-placed AP salvo and secure the game for us. If you look down in the minimap, you'll see that the enemy DD is continuing to run into the northwest corner, and that is where he's going to lose the game. There's only one of him left, and there is still technically 2 of us. So that is this game in the bag. So hopefully you found this game useful, and as we saw a number of times there, it's about playing the game that's going to be happening in 5 to 10 seconds from now when you're playing a BB. There were a number of times we saw where, even just a tiny bit of getting into a turn, you're committed to that turn, and that can really put you out of position. So you've got to really take into account all the factors going on around you before you commit to that turn. Otherwise, you could end up way out of position like that Revenge did a couple of times, or other players. As well, you've got to focus on your flak. Flak is probably one of the most important things I would say to keep in mind when playing a BB. Otherwise, you're going to find yourself scouted and at everybody's mercy. And lastly, again, keep in mind not just your little flank, but the entire battle as a whole, particularly when you're playing as the flagship. Make sure you know where you need to be applying your force and get over to where it is. So, hope you found this video useful. Please check out the NavyField 2 wiki for more tips on battleship, flagship, and other types of gameplay, as well as just general information about the game. And let me know what you'd like to see in the future. Thanks, and stay tuned for more.